لقد من الله على المؤمنين إذ بعث فيهم رسولا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل في ضلال مبين.
وصلى الله على سيدنا مولانا محمد رسوله النبي الأول الوكيل الحليم الكريم الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear students, Alhamdulillah Taala, by grace and blessings of Almighty Allah, we have been discussing the subject, the importance and significance of tasawwuf as a spiritual science or science of spiritualism in a very specific context. And that is to say that tasawwuf or science of tasawwuf is in fact the remembrance of the righteous and blessed people. Tasawwuf is zikr of salihin. So we have already discussed this subject in many relevant aspects, and its many important dimensions have been explained. I think that today will be the last episode of this lecture or of this subject. We all know that tasawwuf is the knowledge of the lives and lifestyles and sayings and practices of salihin. Knowing this fact, so as I have already mentioned that this will be the last episode of this subject, and we are going to discuss today with some Quranic references that remembering the blessed and righteous people, remembering salihin, this is in fact the Sunnah of Almighty Allah. And this is a divine practice carried out by Holy Quran. There are not many places in Quran where Almighty Allah has mentioned His blessed people, the righteous people, under the title of Salihin or some other title. Their peculiar qualities in connection of their spiritual personalities have been mentioned. Some events of their lives have been mentioned in Holy Quran which bear just the spiritual significance or any kind of spiritual impact of human life. So when we keep this fact in our mind, we can easily understand that remembrance of the righteous people and spiritual and blessed people, the salihin, is Sunnah of Almighty Allah and Sunnah of Holy Quran. Why Almighty Allah has done this? The reason is very clear, because He has already expressly mentioned that their way of life is Sirat Mustaqim. That's why he has mentioned their ways of life, their manners of life, their spiritual behaviors. So this is the direct relevance of mentioning or remembering them in Holy Quran, so that the people may understand that this is the way how you have to derive the light and guidance from the blessed people's lives, from Salihin. Now we are taking some of the holy verses of Quran into account in this connection. It is Surah Maryam, that is, the number is 19 and verse number 2 and 3. This surah starts from Huruf Muqatta'at, these letters, Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Swad. And verse number 2 and 3 is Dhikru Rahmati Rabbika Abdahu Zakariya Idh Nada Rabbahu Nida'an Khafiya. So Quran says, Dhikru Rahmati Rabbika Abdahu Zakariya. This is the remembrance of the mercy of your Lord, which he bestowed upon his servant Zakaria, when he called your Lord in a very respectful voice. So it meant this is the just beginning of the surah. And in the beginning of surah, Almighty Allah has said this, it means this surah, or the start of this surah, is the remembrance of the mercy of your Lord, which he bestowed upon his servant Zakaria alayhi salam. So this is the remembrance of Allah's mercy on Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam. So the basic thing is the remembrance of Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam with respect of Allah's mercy which was bestowed upon him specially. Second, the same surah, Maryam. Now I will just mention the verses and their meanings. Surah number is 19, I have already mentioned. Verse number 41, it is stated, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ. Out of those events and those mentionings and those happenings, this is sometimes mentioned as Tazkir bi-ala illah. This is the remembrance of Allah's blessings. Sometimes it is stated as Tazkir bi-ayyamillah, a remembrance of the special days of Allah. Remembrance of the special days of Allah. Remembrance of special blessings of Allah. And third subject, these are the subjects which Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dehlavi has mentioned in his book Al-Fawzul Kabir, saying that there are 5 kinds of knowledge, divine knowledge, which has been revealed to Holy Prophet ﷺ in the form of Quran. Just as hidayah, as guidance. Or you can say he has mentioned 5 kinds of knowledge, of 5 kinds of Quranic knowledge. He says, Ulum-e Khamsa, 5 sciences of Quran, for guidance of mankind. So among these 5 kinds is one is, I told you, Tazkir bi-ala illah. Second is Tazkir bi-ayyamillah. And third is Tazkir bil-maut, remembrance of the life after death. Remembrance of the death and life after death. So death and life after death is something else. It's understandable. 2 things. The first 2 kinds of knowledge. Tazkir bi-ala illah, the remembrance but rather you will say tazkir means repeated remembrance. It is repeated remembrance, continuous remembrance of special blessings of Allah and repeated remembrance of special days of Allah. The question is, blessings on whom? And days for whom? All days are created by Allah. Like the nights. He is the creator of days and nights. He is the creator of time. And He is the creator of all spans of time. The question is that when He says His days, remembering His days, Allah has no days for His own life. So it means the days, the word days, has no connection with His existence. With His existence. So when He says, remember the special days of Allah, the question is that what is the speciality linked with the days created by Almighty Allah? What speciality? What speciality? Which speciality has been linked with the days? Which is that special characteristic which has converted the days into special days so that they are required to be remembered? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all days are days of Allah. So does He mean remember Monday, or remember Sunday, or remember Friday, or remember Tuesday, or remember Wednesday? Does He want the remembrance of these days? Remember the days of January and February and March and April? Does He want us to remember these months and weeks and days? No. This is Dhakkirhum bi ayyamillah. It is Holy Quran. Just this is I wanted to just elaborate the concept. Dhakkirhum bi ayyamillah. Make them to remember the special days of Allah. It is tazkir. Remind them repeatedly the special days of Allah. Remind them. So again the question arises, what is the speciality which has made some days special, which has converted some of the days as special days? The basic thing is there are some days which are blessed. Some days are blessed and they are not like other common days. So the fact is that Almighty Allah wants us to remember those blessed days. Again, next question again arises. What is the factor which has made some of the days blessed? The answer is easy. Allah's blessings, Allah's special favors, Allah's spiritual blessings. So His favors and His blessings have changed the fate of those days. And His blessings has converted them into the blessed days which are required to be remembered. Now next question. Allah's favors and blessings on whom? Allah's favors and blessings on whom? On the days? On the weeks? On the months? No. Favors and blessings on His blessed people. So this is the sequence. How you have to link up the things. Sometimes you just read and recite the Holy Quran, listen to it, and you go away. You just go on reading, reciting, listening, and do not concentrate on the meanings. Everybody knows Almighty Allah's commandment, Dhakkirhum bi ayyamillah. Remind them the special days of Allah. So why some days have become special and other non-special? So they have become special because of Allah's special favors and blessings. And special favors and blessings on special people. Those special people are known as the favored people, the blessed people, and these are Salihin. Because of them, since Allah's showered His favors onto them, because Allah sent His blessings on them, so because of this Allah's special blessings, those days have become rememberable. So if those days have become rememberable, why not those blessed people who have made those days to be remembered? This is something ununderstandable. Some people accepting the days to be remembered and the people not to be remembered. Why? This is just a nonsense. The days have become the days. Days are not ashraful makhlukat. This is just a time span, a time unit. So the days and a time has become memorable. It has become blessed. And we are required to remember those days, to mention those days. And the people, the blessed people, the Salihin, who have become the reason of their becoming blessed. So if we say that they are not to be remembered and their lifestyle and their mention and they don't possess any significance, so this cuts the link of Almighty Allah's commandment or our life in Quran. So this is the basic thing. The same is with Allah, like the days. So which are the Ayyamillah? For example, if Almighty Allah blessed on Hazrat Musa, so that day become a part of Ayyamillah. If He blessed on Sayyidina Isa, became Ayyamillah. If He blessed on Sayyidina Ibrahim, became Ayyamillah. He blessed on Sayyidina Ismail, it became Ayyamillah. It blessed on Sayyidina Hud, He blessed on Sayyidina Yunus. So all those special events of Allah's blessings which took place in the lives of Allah's prophets and messengers and His righteous people, even on Sayyidah Maryam. So even on Ashab-i Kahf. So these days have become Ayyamillah. And the same happens with Tazkir bi Ala'illah. Allah's blessing. Remember Allah's blessings. So you have to remember, you have been commanded to remember Allah's blessings. You have commanded to remember the days when Allah's blessings came to the people, and you are commanded to remember the people, the Salihin, who were blessed by Almighty Allah. So when you talk of these blessings and the blessed days and the blessed people, so this becomes the part of the subject of Tasawwuf. So Tasawwuf in fact deals with Allah's blessings and spiritual favors, and deals with the events and lifestyles and instructions which we derived from those events of the blessed people. So this is the basic link between the two. Now the third, where Almighty Allah says, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. Remember in the book Ibrahim, indeed he was a very truthful prophet. One thing is to remember the truthfulness, just as a value, as a virtue, as an act of morality. So there are many other verses where these values have been commanded, have been instructed. That is something else. Here, because of this specific spiritual characteristic, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam as a righteous person, as a prophet, is being mentioned here to be remembered. This is the requirement of Quran here. Again stated, Inna Ibrahim ala halimun awwahun munib. Indeed, Ibrahim was most moderate and most tender-hearted and always returning to us. always returning to us. So Almighty Allah remembers the prophets and His righteous people with their spiritual acts and characteristics. Again, next verse, 4th, remembrance of prophets Ishaq and Yaqub. Ishaq and Yaqub. I won't say Isaac and Jacob. So I will always prefer the Quranic pronunciation. It is stated in Quran, the first verse which I have mentioned in connection of Ibrahim alayhi salam is in Surah Hud, and Surah number is 11, verse number 75, and this next verse, وَذْكُرْ عِبَادَنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ أُولِي الْأَيْدِي وَالْأَبْصَارِ. Surah Swad, it is Surah number is 38 and verse number 45. Just to show you, this is Al-Fawzul Kabir. I gave just during my talk, it occurred to me and I gave a reference. So you should also see the book. Al-Fawzul Kabir. This is a book written by Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Tehlavi on the subject of Quranic principles of Quranic exegetical principles, exegetical science of Quran, Usul Tafsir, exegetical science of Quran, Usul Tafsir, a very standard book, textbook. Just the first chapter, Al-Bab Al-Awwal, this is in 5 kinds of knowledge, Quranic knowledge. Fil Ulumil Khamsa. So I had mentioned only the 2 because they were relevant with this subject. So this is the first chapter starting with the mentioning of 5 kinds of knowledge. First is Ilmul Ahkam, science of laws. Second is Ilmul Mukhasama. Mukhasama means debate. In fact, this is Mukhasama means the rebuttal of the wrong faiths. Science of rebuttal of wrong faiths. So this is theology, science of theology. And third, which I mentioned, is Ilmut Tazkir bi Ala'illah, creation of universe, of heavens, of this world, of the earth, and His blessings and His revelations of on His prophets and people, and mentioning of His characteristics and attributes in connection of what He has been doing on the people. And then Ilmut Tazkir bi Ayyamillah. Particularly the Ayyamillah deals with that. Those events, those incidents, those happenings, occurrences which took place in connection of His blessings on His muti'een, His blessed people and servant, and punishment to His wraths and punishment to the wrong people. And Ilmut Tazkir bil Maut, remembering the death and life hereafter. So this was just to mention Al-Fawzul Kabir fi Usul al-Tafsir. So Surah Swad, Surah number 38 and verse 45, it is stated, وَاذْكُرْ عِبَادَنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ أُولِي الْأَيْدِي وَالْأَبْصَارِ. And remember our servants, Ibrahim, or commemorate or remember our servants Ibrahim, Ishaq and Yaqub. They were possessors of power, strength and vision. They were possessors of power and vision. Then next verse 46, same. Inna akhlasnahum bi khalisatin dhikr ad-dar. Verily, we did choose them for a special purpose, the remembrance of the hereafter. So they were always remembering the life hereafter and remembering the hereafter, zikr ad-dar, the life after death. وَإِنَّهُمْ عِنْدَنَا لَمِنَ الْمُصْطَفَيْنَ الْأَخْيَارِ. We mentioned this term, you remember? In our last lecture, Al-Mustafain Al-Akhyar, it was mentioned. they were in our sight truly of the company of the elect and the good. Company of the, you can say, elect or select and the good. And they were the selected, they were amongst the selected people and the righteous people. They were amongst the chosen and the righteous ones. Mustafain, the chosen ones. Akhyar, the righteous and blessed ones, the good and righteous. And then before that, there is another place. Before that, there is Inna lahu indana lazulfa wa husna ma'ab. And he enjoyed indeed a near approach to us and a beautiful place of final return. This is the dhikr, the mentioning or remembrance of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam. Verse number 30. Verse number 30. He says, وَوَهَبْنَا لِدَاوُودَ سُلَيْمَانَ نِعْمَ الْأَبْدِ إِنَّهُ أَوَّابٌ. In fact, I just, these verses which I chose and mentioned in my book, Tazkire or Suhbate. And there are many verses on the same subject. If you go in detail, you will get much more material on this subject in Holy Quran. He says, وَوَهَبْنَا لِدَاوُودَ سُلَيْمَانَ نِعْمَ الْعَبْدِ إِنَّهُ أَوَّابٌ. To Dawood, we bestowed Sulaiman for a son. How excellent is the servant. How excellent was he as a servant, in fact. The meaning, how excellent was he as my servant. Innahu awwab, ever did he return to us in repentance. He was always returning to us. He always remained in a status, in a spiritual condition of returning to us for repentance. Awwab. So you see, for example here, if somebody says that Almighty Allah means, if somebody tries to create a meaning of his own mind and he wants to allocate it or to ascribe it to Almighty Allah, that Allah wants in fact mentioning of repentance. He wants mentioning to be a good servant. He wants mentioned to become this and that. He wants to mention to become like these people, like this, to adopt these qualities. The question is, he would have mentioned just the qualities. But in fact he says, Wazkur, remember these people who possessed these and these qualities. So according to Quranic way of explanation and Quranic revelation, it looks like that these spiritual qualities have become the matter of significance because they were possessed by these blessed people. Or in other sense, you can say, Almighty Allah has loved to mention these spiritual qualities and values in connection of His blessed and beloved people. Same is the thing which we do. Why do we remember awliya and saints and salihin? Just because of these blessed qualities, because of these spiritual character, because of these blessed and righteous deeds, the same as Almighty Allah has mentioned here. These Allah's blessings have made them the blessed people. These spiritual characteristics, good deeds and righteous qualities have made them the righteous people, the blessed and beloved people. So this is one and the same thing. So Almighty Allah has signified their lives, their mentioning, their remembrance along with these qualities. And then it is stated to verse 40, 10 verses are in the remembrance of Sayyidina Sulaiman. 10 verses in remembrance of Sayyidina Sulaiman. 11 verses rather. And the same, this is continuing. Before that, there are many verses in remembrance of Sayyidina Dawood. This is Surah Saad. It is stated, Saad Wal Qur'an dhikr. The first verse. Swad wal Qur'an dhikr. Zikr means sahib, possessor. Dhil mal, possessor of mal, possessor of wealth. Dhil ilm, possessor of knowledge. So dhikr, dhikr. So he says, by the Quran, full of admonition, or this is the truth, translation. But going to the literal meanings and depth of the words, it says, because just soon after this saying, Almighty Allah has started the zikr of Anbiya and Salihin. So the real meaning would be, by the Quran, this zikr, the possessor of remembrance. The possessor of, this is the book, the Quran, which is the possessor of the remembrance. A book which you can say it is a collection of remembrance of Allah's righteous people. The dhikr. It is the definition of Quran which Quran has given. Swad wal Quran, by the Quran. Which characteristic is of Holy Quran is being mentioned here? This dhikr. This is the Quran, a book which possesses the remembrance. Which possesses the remembrance. Remembrance of whom? You may say remembrance of truthfulness, of truth. You may say remembrance of good values. You may say remembrance of purity. You may say remembrance of piety. You may say remembrance of goodness, whatever you can say. But the question is, if we go through this surah, this chapter, so let us find what kind of remembrance has been given in this surah. So the remembrance, soon after these verses, Quran starts remembering various prophets with their good values and good qualities and good deeds. Remembrance of Sulaiman, remembrance of Dawood, remembrance of Sayyidina Sulaiman, remembrance of Ayub, remembrance of other prophets. So one by one there is remembrance of various prophets. So if we go through the surah and try to determine the meaning and try to determine the significance and try to determine the real implication of the word this zikr from Quran, then there would be no other option left than the meaning which I am giving to you, that by Quran, this zikr. Why? Because this is the book which possesses the remembrance of Allah's blessed people, remembrance of Allah's righteous people, remembrance of Allah's beloved people. Now come and see what kind of remembrance Almighty Allah has mentioned over here. Always when Quran introduces itself, it's any of its characteristics, any of its special qualities, so it's better to take to understand the meaning of that particular word or quality in the light of Quran itself. If there is any detail has been given in connection of that particular word soon after the verse, it means that Quran is indicating to that particular subject. Otherwise, it is zikr, it is admonition, it is truth. When this thing is without any reference of context, then zikr, the meaning of zikr would be taken in generality. Inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. Here we have revealed the zikr, means admonition, means nasiha, and again the remembrance of all good things which Almighty Allah wants us to remember. Then we will take it in generality, in its common meaning. When there is a special context available in Holy Quran, special context of that particular word, soon after the mentioning of that word, then the best preferred meaning would be the specified meaning which has been given next, soon after. This is Tafsirul Quran bil Quran. This is Tafsirul Quran, you say, bil Quran. Now coming to Tafsirul Quran bil Quran, this Surah Swad introduces the Holy Quran as the book of remembrance of Anbiya and Awliya. book of remembrance of Anbiya and Awliya, book of the remembrance of Salihin, book of the remembrance of Muqarrabin, books of the remembrance of the blessed people, book of the remembrance of the righteous people, book of the remembrance of the beloved people, the spiritual people. So this is the Tafsir al-Quran bil-Quran, first verse of Surah Swad, and number is 38. Now, as I mentioned, the same which is going on, mentioning various righteous people and prophets with their spiritual qualities one by one. فَغَفَرْنَا لَهُ ذَلِكَ وَإِنَّ لَهُ عِنْدَنَا لَزُلْفَى وَحُسْنَ مَآبٍ. These are the spiritual qualities. Then coming to, again he mentions details. فَقَالَ إِنِّي أَحْبَبْتُ حُبَّ الْخَيْرِ عَنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّي حَتَّى تَوَارَتَ الْحِجَابِ. So all these are the remembrances and mentioning of their sentences, their deeds, their spiritual conditions, their characteristics. Although the basic objective is to provide this guidance to us through them, to communicate this message of spiritualism, to communicate this blessed message to us, to Ummah of Holy Prophet, through the remembrance of his blessed people. So he wants to mention the knowledge, the wisdom, the conception and cognition of these blessings and spiritual acts and deeds by the means and by the way of remembrance of Anbiya and Awliya. So this is the basic thing which Holy Quran has done. Then he stated, Wazkur Abdana Ayyub. Again, next. So Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam was mentioned, Dawood. Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam was mentioned. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam was mentioned. Sayyidina Ishaq was mentioned. Sayyidina Yaqub was mentioned. Then commemorate our servants Ibrahim, Ishaq and Yaqub, possessors of power and visions. And then again they have been mentioned in connection that they were possessors of power and vision. Then commemorate or remember our servants Ayyub. You read the word Job. Job is Ayyub. Is Nada Rabbahu. Behold, when he cried to his Lord, Anni massaniya shaitanu binusrim wa adhab. At another place it is stated, Wa Ayyuba is Nada Rabbahu. Anni massaniya durru wa anta arhamur rahimin. This is the second place. Now just this is a very very delicate point of tasawwuf and ma'rifah. Just since I am discussing this place, this matter, so I should give to you too. Concentrate on the words. This is tasawwuf. In fact, everybody has to take the means according to his own naseeb, his own level, his own caliber, according to his own standard of understanding, according to his own ability of grasping, according to his own mental and intellectual and spiritual caliber, ability. Why Allah Taala has mentioned those qualities? Because these were very special people, and their deeds and ways of dealing with Allah, ways of crying in the company of Almighty Allah, ways of their serving Almighty Allah as servants, ways of worshipping, ways of being with Almighty Allah in their day-to-day life was very, very special. This is the basic speciality of their lives, which Almighty Allah wants us to concentrate on that. That's why it is stated, Wazkur, remember Ayyub. Otherwise, there were many other people doing the same act, committing and performing the same act. And these spiritual or human or moral and ethical values had been possessed by many and many people. Why these specific people were chosen and selected for this particular remembrance? Because they were possessors of these qualities in a very special way. In a very special way. Now I tell you, explain you what was the special way. What kind of servant these people were. Everybody is Allah's servant. But what was the special thing which differentiated our servanthood and their servanthood? Our being Allah's servant and their being Allah's servant. What was the differentiating factor? That point is basis of tasawwuf. And this is the reason why their spiritual qualities has been mentioned in Holy Quran. So Sufiya and saints and the scholars of tasawwuf have taken these blessings and these mentionings and these remembrance of qualities in detail along with the underlying meanings and details of spiritual thing, implication. So it states, remember our servant Ayyub. Behold, he cried to his Lord, Rabbanni masaniya shaytanu binusbin wa azab. Shaitan has afflicted me with distress and suffering. Now the question is, after that he doesn't say, oh Almighty Allah, help me. Did he say? He was crying. He was calling his Lord Almighty Allah. He was praying. He was praying. So what we do, we say, Shaitan has afflicted us with distress and suffering, and we have suffered a lot. So Almighty Allah, help us. Take us out of this crisis. This is how our servanthood allows us to do. Why Sayyidina Ayyub has been mentioned in this connection? Allah, Almighty Allah wants to tell, this is a common Islamic practice and this is a specialized spiritual tasawwuf practice. A common Muslim will pray and call Almighty Allah, and he will say, oh Almighty, he will cry to his Lord and Allah and saying, this has happened, oh Almighty Allah, take me out of this crisis and suffering and difficulty and problem. I am in a grave situation of gravity, so please help me and take me out. This is how a common Muslim will do. If this thing was done by them and performed by them too, then there was no need of special mentioning. And they were not to be taken as very special blessed people. Now here lies the concept of adab, respectfulness, adab, high level reverence and adab and respect. This is the subject of tasawwuf. Tasawwuf teaches the people to become respectful and become ba'adab, respectful. Now, according, what is the adab here? You say, after that, he has just stated his suffering and his distress, and then Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam has not asked Almighty Allah, oh my Lord, help me. He has not said this. You understand the point? Now come to the second place of Holy Quran. Quran says at another place, he says, Ayyub is nada rabbahu anni masani ad-durru wa anta arhamur rahimin. Again, behold, he cried to his Lord, Hazrat Ayyub, said, I have been afflicted with dur, with damage, with distress, with a great suffering. And then I have been afflicted with great suffering. And then he doesn't say, oh my Lord, please help me. No, he says, wa anta arhamur rahimin. After that, he doesn't talk of him. He talks of him. He doesn't talk of himself. He talks of his Lord and finishes the matter. He doesn't say that I am suffering from a great problem, in a difficulty, so help me. No. Why? He says, wa anta arhamur rahimin. And you are the kindful of all kindfuls, and you are merciful of all mercifuls, and you are passionate from all, more passionate from all passionates, compassionates. Why? Now he, instead of saying, please help me, he says, you are the merciful. You are the most beneficial and most kind. And just he stops. And he doesn't say, please help me. Why? The adab of this place, of this level is, He thinks of Allah's mansha and his raza, of his pleasure. He thinks, I don't know whether he is pleased to help me at this point, at this time or not. Not asking for his help, it means that he knows this reality. He knows that he doesn't know. He knows that he doesn't know about Allah's pleasure and Allah's decision and Allah's judgment and his intention. What does Allah wants to do? What does Allah want to do with me? Whether he is pleased to take me out of this problem at this moment, or is he pleased to carry this problem along, or to carry it in the future for a long time? So he doesn't know about the pleasure, decision and intention of Almighty Allah. So adab, the highest level of adab is that just to keep silent if you not know what is the pleasure of Allah. So instead of asking, he leaves his matter on the pleasure of Almighty Allah, on his intention. If he asks, oh Almighty Allah, please help me, this will become Hazrat Ayyub's intention. Asking for help is Ayyub's intention. You understand the point? This is his intention, that he is intending to be helped. He is intending to be helped. He is praying to be helped. So this is his intention. This is his wish. This is his prayer, so that he may be taken out of the crisis. So he abandons his prayer. He leaves and detaches himself from his condition after mentioning and placing his condition in front of his Lord. Then he keeps silent because he knows better than me. Lord knows better than the servant. What is better to do with him now? Since he doesn't know what is the pleasure and plan and intention of Almighty Allah, whether he wants to finish this crisis or he wants to continue. See, since he is not in knowledge of this thing, that's why his adab says, Ayyub, you have placed your condition, your suffering before your Lord, and now adab of being his servant is to keep silent. He may do whatever he wants. He may do whatever he wishes. So he gives himself in the hands of the wish of Almighty Allah. He places his suffering in the hands of the pleasure of Almighty Allah. He places his being in front of the being of Almighty Allah, and his preference is not to say something according to his intention. His preference is to remain silent in front of Allah's intention. His preference is not to say something according to his intention or wish. No, his preference is to remain silent in front of wish and pleasure of Almighty Allah. So this is his quality which was loved by Almighty Allah. He liked this quality, this level of adab, this performance of adab. That's why he says he was the best of my servants. He knew the manners of being servant. He knew the manners. These are the meanings underlined between the lines. And to pick up these meanings, in fact, what are the basic objectives and aims of the Quranic remembrances and mentioning, this becomes tasawwuf. You know, as there was, Sayyidina Ibrahim bin Adam was asked, who is your teacher? Somebody asked him, who was your teacher? Who taught you this suluk and spiritual life and this righteousness? Who taught you? He said, I bought a slave and he became my teacher. I bought a slave from the market and he became my teacher. How did he become your teacher? He says, Sayyidina Ibrahim bin Adam, he says, how come he became my teacher? He says that when I brought him to my house, I asked him, what is your name? What is your name? He asked his servant. So my slave replied, there are no names of servants. Wow, wow, wow. There are no names of servants. whatever your player wants, that would be my name. You may call me with any name, that would be my name. Then I asked, what do you like to eat? So that the cook may be ordered to cook these kind of foods for you. He said, do the servants have any likings and dislikings? No, I am your slave. Whatever you give me, that is my liking. Whatever you give me to eat, whatever you feed me, that would be my liking. Then finally I asked him, what is your final wish and desire which you keep in your heart and you want to be fulfilled? He said, do the slaves and servants have any desires? If somebody has his desires, he is not a slave. Slave is a man who has abandoned his wishes, who has abandoned his desires, when freedom has been abandoned, then nothing is left. When freedom has been abandoned, then nothing is left. So I have no desire. My desire is your desire. My liking is your liking. My name is your liking. This was the place, the status of player, being pleased to Almighty. Then as Ibrahim Adam bin Adam says that, it occurred to me, I said, he is my slave and he possesses this level of reverence, of adab. And it occurred in my heart, I am slave of Almighty Allah and I don't know how to behave with my Lord. So then I changed my way of life and that slave became my master, my teacher. This is in fact the way why Almighty Allah says, remember these people, because these were the special people. They knew how to behave with Allah. Father, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam asked, tell me what is your opinion on this subject. What do you want? What do you want to say? Fanzur maza tara. The answer given by Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam is a piece of tasawwuf, of marifah, of adab, of reverence, of respectfulness. He said, Waf'al ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar. Oh my father, perform whatever you have been guided, whatever you have been instructed, whatever you have been commanded. Just do it. Satajiduni, as far as my person is concerned, Satajiduni insha'Allah minas sabirin. He doesn't say Satajiduni insha'Allah sabiran. He doesn't say, but you will find me patient. This is in fact what he wanted to say. You do whatever you have been commanded, you slaughter me, and you will inshallah find me patient. But he didn't say this, that you will find me patient. No. This is the adab, the level of respect which is being remembered. This is the reason when Allah says, remember my blessed people, so that you may also know the spiritual manners of behaving with me. So he said, you do perform whatever you have been commanded. Satajiduni insha'Allah minas sabirin. Instead of saying you will find me patient, he says, inshallah you will find me minas sabirin, standing anywhere far in the line of the patient people. You will find me standing anywhere behind among the people who are patient. Can you understand and differentiate between the two? The difference between the two ways of explaining? One says, you will find me patient. This seems to be the da'wah. This seems to be da'wah. What do you say? A claim. This seems to be a claim, as if somebody is claiming of his being patient. I would be patient, inshallah. So it is something related to me. You will find me patient. I will remain patient. So this is something indicating to his personality, his potential, his ability. So these special blessed people take these things against the respect and respectfulness. Instead of saying this, he says, you will find me minas sabirin. And I am saying in this way, putting the case in this way, as if he says, you will find me among standing, sitting, standing anywhere behind the people who are patient. You will standing me amongst the people who are patient. So he prefers the people, the blessed people, and then includes himself among those company, in those company. He doesn't mention of his patience. He mentions the patience of the blessed people. He mentions the patience of the patient people, and then keeps himself in the company of those people. Do you understand the point? I'm asking you. You followed the point? This is the difference between the two. One says, but you will find me patient. This is little bit, this sentence is little bit indicative of your own potential, that I would be patient. You will see, I will remain patient. The other way of saying, one says, Satajiduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin, by the grace of Almighty Allah, you will find me among the people who are patient. So this means that he is keeping himself as a secondary position. He is putting himself in the company of the patient people. You understand? So this doesn't look like claim. This looks like humbleness. Here is humbleness. There is a claim. So this is the difference between the two. Now it's clear? So to be humble, when you come in front of Almighty Allah, this is the respectfulness of those blessed people. That's why Allah says, Wazkur, remember these people so that you may also get these kind of spiritual values and spiritual good acts and deeds from them. And again it is stated, the same verse goes on, Al-Mustafain al-Akhyar. Then the verse number 48. Verse number 48 of Surah Swad, 48, says, Wazkur Ismail wal Yasa'a wa dhal kifl. Should I give you another interesting thing? Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam had two sons. Sayyidina Ishaq and Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam had two sons. So common practice and common understandable point, this is another new point. Just since that place is in front of me, so I wanted to explain some other relevant things too. Common practice is that when somebody is mentioning father and he wants to mention his children also, and if he had two sons, he will mention that both of the sons together with father. It never happens that at one place father with one son is mentioned and the remaining son is mentioned at another place separately. It is not the common practice. For example, you understand the point? If I want to mention my sons, with somebody will mention me with my sons, he will mention my name and Hassan and Hussein together. If my sons are also going to be mentioned with me, then he will say Dr. Tahir Ul Qadri and his son Hassan and Hussein, this and that. It never happens that he says Tahir Ul Qadri and Hassan, or Tahir Ul Qadri and Hussein, and then his son Hamad, and then other people, other grandsons and children, and leaves the other son. And then if he has left, then he should leave it. But after two verses again he mentions the son, name of other son. Is this a common practice? No. Common practice is the father along with two sons. If the both of the sons are to be mentioned, then they should be mentioned together. So see here, he says, Wazkur ibadana, and commemorate our servants, Ibrahim, the father, wa Ishaq, the son, wa Yaqub, and the grandson, left Ismail. Ulul Adi wal Absar, and this, they were al-Mustafain al-Akhyar. And then there are 2-3 verses. Then in verse 48 he comes again saying, Wazkur Ismail, son of Ibrahim, the second son of Ibrahim, Wazkur Ismail, wal yasa wazal, and commemorate Ismail. So why the remembrance of Ismail has been differentiated from remembrance of Ishaq and Ibrahim? I don't know what the commentators have said. I don't know. I have not just gone through this particular point. But since the verse was in front of me, and what occurred to me, I am going to tell you. That this is from Almighty Allah, which came to my mind and my heart. The reason of differentiating the remembrance of both is that he takes Hazrat Ibrahim along with his, and Hazrat Ismail is being mentioned separately, because there was no other son of Sayyidina Ismail except Prophet Muhammad. So Almighty Allah here gave an indirect and a very beautiful message in connection of the respectfulness of Prophet Muhammad, in his respect and reverence, that his grandson Sayyidina Ismail, had Ismail not been the grandfather of Sayyidina Muhammad Mustafa, of Holy Prophet Muhammad, had he not been his grandfather, he would have definitely been mentioned along with Ishaq in the same verse, since he had to become the grandfather of Sayyidina Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Almighty Allah, just even in his remembrance and even in his mentioning of his name, he has differentiated and placed him in a separate place. Because Holy Prophet is Tilka Rasul Faddalna Ba'dum ala Ba'd. He possesses a very high and separate place among the prophets. So his grandfather has been given the same different and separate place among the mentioning and remembrance of prophets. You understand the point? MashaAllah. This is our problem. We can't go anywhere without mentioning Holy Prophet's respect and reverence. And Quran gives this thing everywhere, everywhere. Whenever I see any verse, any praise of Holy Quran, Quran gives this message. Whether apparently there is mentioning of their subject or not, but it gives, as Quran has given now. Then Quran says, Wazkur Ismail wal Yasa wazal kifl, and remember Ismail and Yasa, Elisha, and Zal Kifl, kullum min al akhyar, each of them was of the company of the good. Again, kullum min al akhyar, each of them was from the company of the righteous people. Company of the righteous. So to be in company of righteous is again the subject of tasawwuf. So Quran mentions that each of them was in the company of the righteous people. And then after that, you remember a specific meaning of dhikr which I adopted, instead of taking the meaning given by the translator, admonition. I didn't translate the word zikr as admonition. I translated the word zikr as remembrance. Instead of translating it into admonition, nasiha, I translated it as remembrance, zikr. You understand? Did I say it to you? Now come the next verse 49. When the remembrance of all of these prophets and righteous people is complete in this verse. Now in 49 Quran says, Haza zikrun. This was the remembrance which we mentioned in the beginning. Quran says, you take any translator, they will say the book admonition. Although the admonition is zikr, but the question is to take the relevant meaning in which Almighty Allah wants to signify this word here. So after mentioning the whole remembrance matter, now he says, Haza zikrun. As if somebody questioned, oh Almighty Allah, what is zikr? He said, just wait, I'll tell you what is zikr. It seems like that. He said, Swad wal Quran is zikr. By Quran, the possessor of zikr. Now a question arose, what is zikr? Either admonition or remembrance of the righteous people. He said, just wait. Listen to me, I'll tell you, you will understand automatically what is zikr. Just keep and wait. So when he finished the matter of remembrance of righteous, then he says, Haza zikrun. This is the zikr. And he says, now you understand what is zikr? Allah says, Haza zikr. This is the zikr. Remembrance of righteous people. Then somebody may think, okay, just it is remembrance of just prophets. There are salihin and muttaqeen other than prophets, and they are awliya. So whether just remembering the prophets is zikr, or salihin other than amongst prophets and other than prophets, all of the muttaqeen and salihin, this is zikr, or just the prophets. You understand the point? So he answers, he says, Haza zikr, this is the remembrance. And now you want to ask me, whose zikr? Whose remembrance? Listen to me. وَإِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ, remembrance of all righteous people. لَحُسْنَ مَآبٍ, and verily for the righteous people is a beautiful place of final return. جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ مُفَتَّحَةً لَهُمُ الْأَبْوَابِ مُتَّكِئِينَ فِيهَا يَدْعُونَ فِيهَا بِفَاكِهَةٍ كَثِيرَةٍ وَشَرَابٍ وَعِنْدَهُمْ قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ أَتْرَابٍ Haza ma tu'aduna li yawmil hisab. He says, then the zikr, this is a message. Again, Abdullah Yusuf, this is a message of admonition. He doesn't leave admonition. He loves admonition. The question is that this is, in fact, this is admonition. No, no difference on that. But the basic thing is this remembrance carries the message of admonition. This remembrance carries the admonition. You understand the point? The admonition is the message of this remembrance. Admonition, truthfulness, piety. This is the message of this remembrance. Remembrance of whose? Of all of the righteous people, muttaqeen, whether they were prophets or salihin. That's why in Surah Fatiha he doesn't say Sirat al-lazina anamta alayhim, yani Sirat al-anbiya wal mursaleen. He doesn't say, or Sirat al-rusul wal nabiyyin. No. Sirat al-lazina anamta alayhim, the path of those who are blessed and favored by Almighty Allah, whether they are prophets or not. Like minan nabiyyin wa siddiqeen wa shuhada'i wa salihin. All those who were blessed, one group amongst them was the prophets, and three groups were non-prophets, were not prophets, but they were still the blessed people, being siddiqeen, being shuhada and being salihin. They were still blessed and favored by Almighty Allah. So the path of the blessed people is the right path, is Sirat Mustaqim. These are the muttaqeen. Then coming back to the same thing. So this was from Surah Swad. Then again Quran says in Surah Maryam, Surah number is 19 and verse number 51. Quran says, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مُوسَى إِنَّهُ كَانَ مُخْلَصًا وَكَانَ رَسُولًا نَبِيًّا. Said, remember in this book Musa. Remember in this book Musa. Why? He was sincere, freed himself from the control of his desires and wishes. He had freed himself from control of his desires, control of his nafs, his self, ego. And he was a messenger and a prophet. Then stated again, Surah Maryam, verse 54 and 55. So, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Musa. Subhanallah. Then says, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Ismail. Again in Surah Maryam. إِنَّهُ كَانَ صَادِقَ الْوَعْدِ وَكَانَ رَسُولًا نَبِيًّا وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ وَكَانَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ مَرْضِيًّا. This is about Sayyidina Ismail. Remember in this book Ismail, indeed he kept his promises and was a messenger. He used to order his family to perform salah and to pay zakat, and he was on the status of mardiyya. with his Lord. His Lord was pleased with him. In the Rabbihi Mardiya. His Lord was pleased with his self and his soul. He was amongst the pleased people. Then stated the same much. Then it is in Surah Maryam, verse number 56 and 57. Again, next verse. وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِدْرِيسَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. And remember in this book Idris, indeed he was a very truthful prophet, and we raised him to a high spiritual status. وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. And we raised him to a very high status. Then Quran, Surah Swad, stated Swad, verse number 17. Isbir ala ma yaqulun wadhkur abdana Dawood dhal aid innahu awwab. Be patient of their obscene talks. Whatever the people talk wrong about you, be patient. And remember our strong servant Dawood, he always returned to us. Yani Almighty Allah commands us to keep in view and to keep in consideration their patience, their qualities, their deeds, their piety and their righteousness and their way of behavior, their way of life. Keep these things in consideration. This is the way how you get light and you will follow the right path. You will get Sirat-e-Mustaqim. So I told you this is the personification of Sirat-e-Mustaqim. The concept of Sirat-e-Mustaqim has not been left as an abstract idea, as an academic issue for discussion, for debate. It has not been left just as a communication. No, it has been personified in the form of the blessed people. These blessed people, these personalities in their lives and their behaviors, this is the way of Sirat Mustaqim. So these were prophets. Now it is stated, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمْ إِذِ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا. Remember in the book, in this book, Quran, in Maryam, when she, the question is what is being remembered? Up till now, this is another important thing. Up till now we were discussing that Quran has mentioned their remembrance with their good deeds, their acts of piety, their acts of morality, their acts of spiritualism, their acts of pleasure with Almighty Allah, their being pleased to Him, their being respectful, truthful. All of these qualities were the reasons of their remembrance, or they were connected together. Remember the blessed people with these qualities because they were possessor of these qualities. Up till now we were discussing this aspect. Now something is coming where no special these qualities or titles have been mentioned. Just events of Allah's blessed people have been mentioned. And of course there are many admonitions, many lessons in those events, no doubt. Quran never mentions any event without lesson. In spite of this fact, now come, Almighty Allah has mentioned just events, some happenings, some occurrences. So again, how the Tasawwuf deals with karamat of awliya. This is Allah's Sunnah, which has been performed through Holy Quran. Tasawwuf mentions their karamat, their spiritual events, their sayings, their various happenings in their life, and we get admonition and light from those events. Same has been done in Holy Quran. Stated, remember in this book Maryam, when she separated herself from her family and moved to the eastern part of the house. So relate in the book, remember in the book the story of Maryam, when she withdrew from her family, separated herself from her family to a place in the east. Moved to the eastern part of the house. So this thing has been mentioned. You tell me now, what is specific admonition or specific lesson in mentioning of her moving to the eastern part of the house? If she had moved to the western part of the house, then would Almighty Allah had mentioned this or not? So there is nothing special in the eastern part and nothing special in western part. You understand? Number two, this is just her decision because a special time, specific, special event, moment, a time was coming and she had to move. She had to separate herself. This is just a common thing which occurs in the life of every woman. But the next thing was the blessed moment. A son was going to born. His son was getting birth without father, with Allah's blessing. But mentioning of this thing, when she moved toward the eastern part of the house, Wazkur, remember this aspect of Maryam. What is in this remembrance? Just mentioning of an event, an occurrence, is as a story of one of the beloved persons of Allah. So this is how we mention the beloved events, the events and stories of beloved persons of Allah. This is Zikru Salihin. Just mention their ways, their stories, their sittings, their talkings, their various occurrences, their stories of their birth, how they were born, how they died. Mentioning all these things had an impact, creates an impact of admonition on our heart, on our souls. So this is taken in Holy Quran. Then says, فَاتَّخَذَتْ مِن دُونِهِمْ حِجَابًا, and she placed a screen to separate herself from them. When we sent فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا, then we sent our angel and he appeared before her as a man in all respects. Then قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن من إن كنت تقيا قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهبك لك غلاما زكيا. So this is a relevant thing. Then in Holy Quran it is stated, she said, I seek refuge from you. Allah most gracious, come not near to me. He said, no, I am only a messenger from your Lord to announce to you the gift of a pure son. This is normal talk. Then she says, how is it possible? قالت أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ وَلَمْ أَكُ بَغِيًّا. Then she said, how shall I have a son, seeing that no man has even touched me and I am not an unchaste? So this is normal talk and a conversation. So Almighty Allah has mentioned it word by word. So why? So that you may also talk in the same way. This is not going to happen for other people. Now no woman in this world is going to give birth to any child without father. And never Jibreel, Ameen and Ruhul Qudus is not coming to any woman to give her a message that you are going to have a child without father, with Allah's blessing. And Jibreel Ameen is not coming to any woman to do dam, to blow on her for son. So this thing is, there is no chance of reoccurrence. If there is no chance of reoccurrence, now why this whole story, the whole conversation, her sentences, the answer, the question, the answer, again the answer, and word verbatim, why this story is mentioned here? What kind of lesson we are getting? Except admonition. What admonition? Is the spiritual impact on the heart and soul by remembering the stories, life stories of the beloved people of Allah. And then the relevant, very important portion, verse number 22. Verse number 22. فَحَمَلَتْهُ فَانْتَبَذَتْ بِهِ مَكَانًا قَصِيًّا. So she conceived him, and she retired with him to a remote place. فَأَجَاءَهَا الْمَخَاضُ إِلَى جِزْعِ النَّخْلَةِ قَالَتْ يَا لَيْتَ لِي Ya laytani mittu qabla hadha wa kuntu nasiyam mansiya. And the pains of childbirth drove her to the trunk of a palm tree. This is Quran. Minor thing which normally happens, is the normal practice at this stage. Almighty Allah is mentioning these things. Pains of childbirth took place, started, and these pains drove her to the trunk of a palm tree. So there is no message of 4 farz and 2 farz is given here. So many sunnah and so many nafl, and this is halal and this is haram. No, this kind of admonition, this kind of Quranic commandments, nothing. Mentioning of these purely personal and private matters. But these things occur to every woman. So these things are being mentioned just as a story, because Quran says, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمْ. Now remember the story of Maryam. So Almighty Allah is telling the story of Maryam. Because mentioning the karamat, the mentioning the events, the mentioning of stories, the mentioning of their various occurrences of their lives, the whole thing, all these things and remembrances and mentioning possess the spiritual impacts, implications, and these spiritual impacts are known as admonitions, because they create an impact on heart and soul, because their zikr itself is the creator of impact, if the possessor of impact. And then she cried in her anguish, ah, would that I had died before this. This is also being mentioned. This is a natural sentence, because without getting married, she was going to give birth to a child. So this was a natural phenomena, natural reaction, because of his chastity and purity. So she uttered this sentence, and Almighty Allah has made this sentence the verse of Quran. Ah, would that I had died before this. So what kind of admonition or what kind of special commandment you are getting out of these words? Just Almighty Allah loves the world's sentences and conditions of His blessed people. He loves. He said this thing at that place. He did this at that particular moment. She ran when Hazrat Ismail was rubbing his feet, toes, and he demanded water. So she ran. He loves. She ran from Safa mountain to Marwa mountain just in the quest of water, to find water. Everything was happening just in a normal way, in a normal procedure, it was a normal happening as used to happen in the life of people. But Almighty Allah was watching all this, and He loved all these acts and deeds of His beloved and blessed woman, the Hazrat Hajara, so much so that He mentioned in Holy Quran and said the mountains and hills and the places where Hajara was running out of this condition. So I declared these mountains to become my sha'air, to become my signs. Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'irillah. Now these mountains of Safa and Marwa has become my signs. Signs of Allah's Tawheed, signs of Allah's blessings, my signs. So if Allah's blessed people just run, this becomes capable of being remembered by Almighty Allah and mentioning in Holy Quran. This becomes entitled to be remembered. So if she cried out of the pains of childhood, so her words which were uttered at that particular time became the signs of Almighty Allah and a matter of remembrance in Quran. And then Quran says, فَنَادَاهَا مِن تَحْتِهَا Allah tahzani qad ja'ala rabbuki tahtaki sariya. But a voice cried to her from beneath the palm tree, grieve not, for your Lord hath provided a rivulet beneath you. وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِزْءِ النَّخْلَةِ تُسَاقِطْ عَلَيْكِ رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا. And shake towards yourself the trunk of the palm tree. You understand? These are the things like the women, the mothers tell the stories to the small kids. Your mothers used to tell these kind of stories to the, when you were kids, small kids, lying on the bed and crying, Mama, no, I want story, tell me some story, tell me some story. And he used to say, there was a king, this happened, this thing happened, he said, I want this. And she said, no, I can't give you this. He said, no, come here, I can give you with Allah's blessing. Then he said, just shake the palm tree and you will get these things and all these things. Didn't your mother do the same? I normally, now in these days, I hear Hamad, Basima, my daughter Khadija when she was small, always they are asking, Mama, we want story, and I hear their mama is telling these kind of stories to them. She said this, he said this, he asked this, he demanded this, so they happily said, sleep and you will get this. This is what Almighty Allah is telling the story about His beloved people. Why? To please them. To please His blessed people, so that every blessed people knows, see, as I remember Hajra, although she is not here now, as I remember Maryam, although she is not here now, in the same way as you will become my blessed people, I will also remember you on Arsh and the heavens, as I have remembered them in Quran. There is no other book going to be revealed afterwards, but you see, as my practice is to remember my beloved people, although they were thousands years before this time, in the same way, if you are my beloved and blessed, I will remember you there. And my people, the other reason of mentioning this is that the Ummah of Holy Prophet is being commanded. See, these are small and minor things which normally a common man will ignore it. But I am not ignoring even a single word and sentence uttered in a very special state, conditions. Even I am mentioning these very minor things. Why? I love remembering my beloved people. I love remembering the stories of my blessed people. So you have also to adopt the same practice. When you will sit together, you have to read the stories of my awliya and my beloved people and bless. This would become tasawwuf and spiritualism. According to Quran, it will let fall fresh ripe dates upon you of mentioning these things. The other aspect is regarding Aqidah also. There may be some people, and there were some people who believed as Mother God. So it is also being refuted and rebutted that she felt pains of childbirth and she felt this and hunger and she felt thirsty. So it means that she suffered all these things like a common woman suffers. So she was not a god, she was a human being. And then فُكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي وَقَرِّي عَيْنًا فَإِمَّا تَرَيِنَّ مِنَ الْبَشَرِ أَحَدًا فَقُولِي إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ صَوْمًا فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنْسِيًّا. So eat and drink and cool your eyes. And if you see any man say, I have vowed to fast to Almighty Allah, most gracious, and this day will I enter into no talk with any human being. Each and every detail. فَأَتَتْ بَهِ قَوْمَهَا تَحْمِلُهُ. At length she brought the baby on her hands to other people. But Almighty Allah would have left these things, but tahmil. Normally when a child is born, so the mothers and moms, they always carry on their hands, tahmilu. But she brought her baby to her nation, to her people, carrying him in her arms. Said, "Oh Mary, لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا فَرِيًّا." Truly a strange thing has you brought. So all these things, so her reply and their saying, and then finally Sayyidina Ismail, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam's birth, and his speaking there in his cradle. So this is how Almighty Allah says, "Wazkur fil kitab Maryam." Then again another verse, that is Surah An-Naml. Surah An-Naml. Surah number is 27 and verse number 38. This is mentioning of Asif bin Barkhiyah, one of the companions of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, the Sahabi and Wali of that time, a saint of that time. قال يا أيها الملأ أيكم يأتيني بعرشها قبل أن يأتوني مسلمين. Here the karamat has been mentioned. We can take this in afterwards. So again, Am hasibta anna ashabal, take this from Surah Al-Kahf. Al-Kahf. Surah number is 18, verse number 9 and 10. Quran says, Am hasibta anna ashabal kahfi warraqim kanu min ayatina ajaba. So this is another event. Did you think that the people of the cave and the tablet were a strange signs among our signs? We will talk on this subject again later, when we will come to mentioning the karama. Now the important thing which has been mentioned over here is that the remembrance of the people of Kahf, these were awliya and Allah's righteous people in Bani Israel. But here the remembrance of the dog of the people of Kahf has also been mentioned. Their dog has been mentioned. And the way of the sitting, of the way of dogs sitting, how did the dog sat in front of the cave? How many people were in the cave, the Ashabul Kahf, the people of cave? Quran says, قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم. Quran Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 21 and 22. Some people will say that these Ashab-i Kahf, the people of Kahf, were three. Now Quran saying a very important point which requires your attention and concentration is, some people would say that the people of Kahf were three and fourth of them was their dog. Is ever mentioned, if you are going anywhere, three friends or four friends on a very spiritual trip, going to Hajj, to Kaaba, anywhere, to a friend, and you take your dog as a protector with you for your watching or protecting you, your dog is with you, and somebody asks, how many friends went there, how many of you were there? So do you say that we were three and fourth was our dog? If you go to any house just to have a dinner with them, to that family, and they ask you, how many people are you? You say, we are three and fourth is our dog. No, we are five and sixth is our dog. No, we are seven and eighth is our dog. Does anybody say and talk like this? No. Allah, Almighty Allah talks like this. Allah says, some people say they were three, the fourth of them were the dog. Some will say they were five, with the sixth of them being their dog. These are their guesses without knowledge. Some will say they were seven and the eighth was their dog. This is Quran. Since the dog was in their company and serving them, since the dog was in the company of saints, in company of awliya and salihin, and dog was serving them, dog was intending to keep silent and to sit in front of on the door of the cave to protect them. If any enemy comes to them, he will bite them, and he will save them. So since the God has a good intention of serving the awliya and saint, and he was in their company, the company of the righteous, so Almighty Allah didn't detach the dog when he started remembering his awliya. He didn't detach the dog from them. He always mentioned the dog along with their number. They were three, and some say fourth was the dog. They were five, some say fifth was the dog, sixth, and some people say they were seven and eighth was their dog. Nobody is bothering about the dog. The basic thing is that how many were the people of cave? This is the question. Nobody had asked that if the dog was with them, everybody knows the dog was with them. Finished. So what is the point of mentioning again and again? If they were three, then fourth was the dog. If they are five, then sixth is the dog. If they are seven, then eighth is the dog. So what is the point of mentioning this? Just this signifies the relevance, the significance, the importance, and blessed act of being in company of the righteous people. So since he was in their company and he was serving them, so having the company of the righteous people and intention of serving them, to serve the blessed people, this is of so much higher, this act is of that higher spiritual level that Almighty Allah always keeps the dog in company of the remembrance also. And then again it is stated, then dog sat just in front of the cave. Is there any point to mention the way how the dog was sitting, the style of the dog sitting? Is there any question of mentioning this? But dog was sitting in this style. Do you ever mention, even if you have the dog, do you mention the style of sitting of dog? No, this is not the question and subject of Quran. But Allah says, وَقَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ زِرَاعِيَّ بِالْوَسِيطِ. He says, their dog lay in front of the cave with his paws stretched out like this. Always dogs sit like the same way. The dog, this is the style of sitting of dog. But Almighty Allah mentions the style of sitting, because dog also sat for 300 years in front of the Kahf. And Almighty Allah blessed on the people of Kahf for 309 years. And they got alive afterwards. And the dog continued sitting in front of the cave in their service and company. So he was also blessed by Almighty Allah because of being in company of the righteous people and Salihin. So when Almighty Allah has mentioned the story of Ashab Kahf, he is mentioning side by side the story of dog. And this is in Hadith, and all of the tafsir people, the people of the Aimma of tafsir have mentioned. Quran says that after every 6 months, وَتَحْسِبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. It is in Quran that after 6 months, this is mentioned in tafsir, but after some period, Almighty Allah was changing their bodies. They were changing their bodies by the commandment and blessing of Almighty Allah from right to left side, and then from right side of the body to left. This was how they spent. 6 months was one span of time, and how they were spending, changing their sides after every 6 months. So this was being, you can say, a blessing from Almighty Allah on the people of cave. And Mufassirin mention here, whenever the people of cave, they changed their bodies and their side of the bodies, at the same time dog also was changing the side of their body in the same direction. So Almighty Allah connected the dog with the line of blessings which were being showered on the people of Kahf. He was connected with the same chain. He was connected with the same spring and mountain of the blessings. He was put in the same channel, same way. As they were being blessed, so he was also getting the share of Allah's blessing from them. This is how Almighty Allah has mentioned the righteous people and those, even dog, if anyone is in their company. Then Quran says, again, Surah Anbiya, Surah number is 21 and verse is 50. After mentioning like the Surah Swad, the same way, after mentioning many prophets with their spiritual acts, spiritual deeds, spiritual qualities and spiritual values, and Allah's blessings on them, after mentioning these, then finally he says, like this Surah Swad, Haza Dhikrun. This is the remembrance which I wanted to explain, that Quran is the possessor of remembrance. Again here, after mentioning the remembrances of various prophets and blessed people, Quran finally says in verse 50 in Surah Anbiya, Hadha zikrun mubarakun anzalnahu fa antum lahu munkirun. This Quran is the blessed remembrance. Zikrun mubarakun. This Quran is the blessed remembrance, because this is remembrance of the blessed people, which we have revealed. Do you reject it? This Almighty Allah has meant. This is the blessed remembrance of His blessed people. So Quran says that the zikr of Salihin is a blessed remembrance. Are you those who reject this remembrance? So rejecting of this remembrance is rejecting of tasawwuf. Or in other words, rejecting of tasawwuf is in fact rejecting of the blessed remembrance. Rejecting of tasawwuf is in fact the rejecting of the blessed remembrance. And then the same Surah Anbiya, after mentioning all of these prophets and the blessed people, then Allah says in Quran, verse number 72, Anbiya verse 72, after mentioning all these prophets and the blessed people, says, وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا صَالِحِينَ, and we made all of them the pious people and righteous. And we made all of them the pious. And هَذَا ذِكْرٌ مُبَارَكٌ, this is the blessed remembrance. We made all of them the pious people. And this is the blessed remembrance. Do you want to reject it? This is what Allah asks. So rejecting the remembrance, blessed remembrance, is rejecting the tasawwuf. And rejecting the tasawwuf is in fact rejecting the blessed remembrance. And rejecting the blessed remembrance is in fact rejecting the blessings of Allah. And rejecting the blessings of Allah is in fact rejecting the Allah from your faith. Then Quran says in Surah Anbiya verse 73, as jalna kullan jalna salihin, now says وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِعْلَ الْخَيْرَاتِ وَإِقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءَ الزَّكَاةِ وَكَانُوا لَنَا عَابِدِينَ. Verse 73. And we made them as a role models for mankind. They guide people with our command. This is the basic thing. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Our Lord, show us, lead us to the right path, Sirat Mustaqim. And he says, Sirat Mustaqim is the Sirat, is the path of the righteous people. Now Quran says, Jalnahum Aimmatan. We have made them as role models of men for mankind. They are the role models. And they guide people with our command. And we send to them the revelation on good deeds and performing salah and paying zakah. And all of them were our worshippers. Abidin, they were Abidin, they were our worshippers. And why Almighty Allah? We know they were your worshippers. And why you have mentioned their stories? Why you have mentioned their stories? So the answer given here in this next verse is, they were our worshippers, they were our blessed people, they were our beloved people, they were the torch bearer and role models for mankind, they were the possessors of my blessings, they were the respectful servants, they knew the manners how to behave with me, they were people of soul and people of spiritualism. By Almighty Allah we understand why you have mentioned their stories. The Quran says, وَذِكْرَى لِلْعَابِدِينَ. I have mentioned their stories so that the people in future, if they want to become my worshipper, they will get admonition from their stories. ذِكْرَى لِلْعَابِدِينَ. This is the advice for the worshippers to come. Those who will like to become worshippers in future, those who want to become Abidin, there is zikra, the advice and admonition for them in these stories. So stories of worshippers carry advice and admonition for worshippers, for those who want to become worshippers. You understand the point? Stories of the blessed people carry advice and admonition and spiritual benefit for those who want to become blessed. Stories of the righteous people carry advice and admonition for those who want to become righteous and pious. And then again Surah Anbiya verse 86, it is stated, wa Ismail wa Idris wa Zal Kifl kullum min as-sabirin wa adkhalnahum fi rahmatina innahum min as-salihin. And also remember Ismail and Idris and Zulkifl. All of them were patient people. We entered them into our mercy. And indeed, they were righteous people. They were salihin. And this Quran and this Surah Anbiya and Surah Swad and many other surah, this Quran is in fact the remembrance of salihin. Then next verse in Ayah 90, Surah Anbiya, verse 90, says, Kanu yusari'una fil khayrat wa yad'unana raghaban wa rahaba wa kanu lana khashi'een. Indeed, all these blessed people, salihin, rushed in performing good deeds, and they used to call us with desire, interest, and in a state of fear, and they used to be very humble. See how their spiritual manners, behaviors and deeds and their qualities are being mentioned. And they used to be very humble. And then again, this Surah Anbiya, verse number 106, 106. That was in Maryam, now Anbiya. That was Swad, various surah. Now in Anbiya says, we have mentioned the stories of the righteous people, of the worshippers, of the blessed people. We have remembered the stories. Why? Inna fi hadha la balaghan liqawmin abidin. Indeed, in this Quran, in mentioning of these stories of the righteous people, in mentioning of these stories, indeed in this Quran and these stories, there is a guarantee for worshippers to gain the required destination. Balaghan liqawmin abidin. Those who want to become worshippers, or those who would be worshippers in future, there is guarantee for them to reach the destination. So tasawwuf and zikr of salihin guarantees the followers to reach the destination. And finally, after mentioning all these stories of the spiritual people and blessed people, in verse 107, finally it is being declared, Vama, all these were the blessed people, all these were the good worshippers, all these were the righteous people, all these were the beloved peoples. After mentioning the categories and stories of these blessed people, finally the whole zikr, haza zikrun mubarakun, this is the blessed zikr. Now this final blessed zikr is being completed or finished, being ended at this point. Wama arsalnaka illa rahmatan lil alameen. All these were blessed, but all blessings of Almighty Allah ended on the blessing of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we did not send you but as they were the people on whom Allah's mercy was showered. They were the people on whom Allah's blessings were showered. They were the people on whom Allah's favors were showered. So they were the possessors of Allah's mercy. They were the possessors of Allah's mercy. And here is Allah's mercy Himself. So everybody who gets Allah's mercy, so Holy Prophet has been declared as the mercy of Almighty Allah for whole universe. It means Holy Prophet is the basic source of Allah's mercy, is the basic fountain, spring of Allah's mercy, is the basic source of Allah's blessing. So it means that Allah Almighty Allah wants to explain the fact that anyone who wants to get my mercy should go to my beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the source of my mercy. So if you detach yourself from him, from his company, from his love, from his tawassul and intermediation, if you detach yourself from him, if you don't ask something from him, you don't try to get something from him, it means you are depriving yourself from my mercy. Because if you want to see my mercy, every prophet who came here was the carrier and possessor of my mercy. And when I wanted to close the chain of prophethood, I sent a Prophet Muhammad and made himself as my mercy. So now my mercy has come to the universe. Anybody who wants, who is the seeker of my mercy and blessing, should go directly to my Prophet Muhammad, my beloved, and try as much as possible to get the mercies and blessings of Allah from him. He is the blessing himself. He is the mercy himself. So this was, you can say, the last episode of the subject that tasawwuf is zikr of salihin. Tasawwuf is remembrance of salihin. Two things I mentioned, that in tasawwuf, the zikr and remembrance in all aspects is included. So the karamat of awliya and salihin is also the part of tasawwuf. And finally, remembering and mentioning the karamat of awliya is also sunnah of Allah. This is also sunnah of Allah. In the same way as mentioning the mujizat of Allah. Remembering the miracles of prophets is Allah's sunnah, and miracles of prophet is Allah's blessing. In the same way, the miracles of awliya Allah, of the saints, the karamat of awliya is also Allah's blessings. And remembering these miracles of anbiya and awliya is also sunnah of Almighty Allah, which has been adopted in Holy Quran. I just give you two examples just to make you understand. One is Surah An-Naml. Surah An-Naml. Surah number is 27 in verse from 38 to 40. This is mentioning of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam. He said, قال يا أيها الملأ أيكم يأتيني بعرشها قبل أن يأتوني مسلمين. You know the story of Sayyidina Sulaiman and the queen of Saba. The queen of the Saba, Bilqis. He said to his own men, he said to the people of his company, the companions who were sitting there, "O my chiefs," said to his chiefs of his society, of his government, "which of you can bring me her throne before they come to me in submission?" Because he knew and he was informed that the queen of Saba was coming to him in submission, to accepting his prophethood, to embracing Islam, and to bring faith in him. So he wanted her throne, very big throne, also to be present there before she came. He wanted to show the throne to her, that this is how, alhamdulillah, we have Allah's blessings. You came, and you came through the same way, but you took so long time, and we brought your throne just without any apparent and external or physical means, just within no time. He asked, "O my chiefs, which of you can bring me her throne before they can come to me in submission?" قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك وإني عليه لقوي أمين. If Sayyidina Sulaiman had done this himself, it had become his mu'jiza, miracle. If he had done, it would have become his mu'jiza. Now he is just asking, sitting on his throne. He has not done himself. Although the karama of wali is in fact the impact, is in fact the reflection of the mu'jiza of Nabi. Karama of the saint is in fact the reflection of the mu'jiza and miracle of the prophet. Ye usi ka hota hai reflection. So he himself was not doing that act. He was asking somebody to do for him. So a stalwart of the jinn, he said, "Ana atika bihi, I will bring it to you. Qabla an taquma min muqamik." Now here is the mentioning of karama. If he had done this on his own, it would have become miracle, mu'jiza. Now he asked his companions, awliya and sahaba, whatever they were. And they are not prophets. So if somebody from them does it, it becomes karama. And Almighty Allah has mentioned in detail the karama of a wali. He said that I will bring it to you before you rise from your council. You are sitting here in the council on your throne. Two meanings have been given to this. One, if you rise, if you finish your meeting, you finish your meeting, end your meeting. Before you end your meeting in this council, I will bring the throne to you. One meaning. Other meaning is an taquma min maqamik. If you just stand up, you are sitting on your chair or throne. If just stand up, before you get up, I will bring the throne. The throne would be here. Before you are standing up. He said, no. He said, Inni alayya laqabiyyun ameen. For I have full strength for the purpose and I may be trusted. He said, no, I don't want this. For two reasons, maybe for two reasons. One reason is he said it is late. I don't want the throne to be here till end of the meeting or end of the council. I want just now, within no time, like this. One reason. The other reason, he said no, because he said, Inni alayya laqabiyyun ameen. I have full strength for the purpose and I may be trusted. So he thought he was mentioning of his own potential. He was not performing like Sayyidina Ayyub and Ismail. He was saying, I have full strength, I am strong enough to do that. So he said, this is not a wali. You are not a wali, because wali doesn't talk like that. Wali never says, I am strong enough to do this. No. He said, I can do with grace and blessing of Almighty Allah. I can do if Allah wants me to do. If Allah enables me to do. So this is not the way how Allah or saints and awliya do talk. So he rejected this offer. He said, I want, who among you, my chiefs, can do that? قَالَ الَّذِي يَنْدَوْ إِلْمٍ مِّنَ الْكِتَابِ. Another man stood up. And he was a wali from the awliya of his ummah. الَّذِي يَنْدَوْ إِلْمٍ مِّنَ الْكِتَابِ, said one who had knowledge of the book, the spiritual knowledge of the book. Just all ulama and speakers and preachers, they have the knowledge, and shuyukh here and there in West and Arab, everybody has the knowledge of books. So can they do that? Because of this knowledge. So what does this knowledge mean? Knowledge doesn't mean that knowledge which those preachers and speakers they possess, the criticizers. Knowledge doesn't mean that knowledge. This knowledge means ilmul batin, the spiritual knowledge. He was a Sufi and wali of that time. He stood up. He said, Ana atika bihi qabla an yartadda ilayka tarfuk. He said, I will bring it to you before the glance returns to you. The eye glance returns to you. You just close your eyes and open it. The throne would be here before your eye glance returns to you. Before opening of your eye after closing, just within this time, it would be here. And then he said, قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك فلما رآه مستقرا عنده قال هذا من فضل ربي. So he closed his eyes and opened. So before the glance returned to him, then the Sulaiman saw it placed firmly before him with the same time. And then that wali Asif bin Barkhiyah said, this is by the grace of my Lord. This is by the grace of, he didn't say, I was strong enough to do this. So alhamdulillah, have you seen I have done it? You see, I have done it. He didn't say I have done it. He said, this has been done by the grace of Almighty Allah, of my Lord. He said, you are wali. You know how to talk. You know how to speak. You know the respectful manner of talking. You know the humbleness. Then, وَمَنْ كَافَرَ فَإِنَّ رَبِّي غَنِيٌّ. Then he said that this is for grateful, this was the grateful and thankfulness of Almighty Allah. So this is the mentioning of Karama of Asif bin Barkhiyah, one wali. So there are many other references here. There's no time left now to mention. There are details in ahadith from Qatada, a tabi'i. He says his name was Asif. And then Yazid says Asif bin Barkhiyah, Yazid bin Roman. Mujahid, another tabi'i, says his ism was Ustum. Another one says his ism was Khidr. He said he was Khidr alayhi salam. So many names have been given, and then details have been given about that wali. The second mentioning of the karama is the mentioning of Hazrat Maryam. Quran says, "Iz qalat imra'atu Imran, Rabbi inni nazartu laka ma fi batni muharraran fataqabbal minni innaka antas samiul alim." Surah Ali Imran, surah number is 3 and verse number 35 to 43. This is again the story of Hazrat Maryam, the Mary, and her karama. Now I just read the translation for you. "Behold, wife of Imran said, O my Lord, I do dictate into you what is in my womb for you special service. So accept this from me for your hearest, because you are the hearest and knowest of all things." When she was delivered, Hazrat Maryam, when she was born, she said, the wife of Imran, "O my Lord, behold, I have given a birth to a female child, and Allah knows best what she brought forth. Any male is not like this female. I have named her Mary, Maryam, and I commend her and her offspring to your protection from Shaitan, the rejected one." Now the mention, فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ وَأَنبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا وَكَفَّلَهَا زَكَرِيَّا كُلَّمَا دَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا زَكَرِيَّا الْمِحْرَابَ وَجَدَ عِندَهَا رِزْقًا قَالَ يَا مَرْيَمْ أَنَّى لَكِ هَذَا قَالَتْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Here is the mentioning of karama. Right graciously did her Lord accept her. He made her grow, then the whole thing, in purity and beauty, to the care of Zakaria alayhi salam. Was she assigned every time that he entered? Now every time he entered in her room, her chamber, where she used to worship, he saw, always he found her sustenance, food and fruit. Whenever he entered into the room where she used to worship, he found the sustenance, the rizq, the food, the fruit. So she found her supplied with sustenance, food and fruit. He said, "O Maryam, where comes this to you from? Whence comes this to you?" She said, "From Allah. For Allah provides sustenance to whom He pleases without measure." Always the doors were closed, and even there was no season for that fruit and rizq. Even then he used to find the food and fruit in the closed, locked room. And he asked, "Where are you getting these from?" She said, "From Almighty Allah." So this is the mentioning of karama, Allah's blessing. Somebody may say, "No, this is mentioning of Allah's blessing." So we say the karama is Allah's blessing. Allah's blessing sometime appears in the form of miracle of prophet, and Allah's blessing sometime appears in the form of karama of wali, of saint, of the blessed people. So whether it is mu'jiza or it is karama, it is Allah's blessing. But blessing has to appear in any particular way, on somebody, in life of somebody, in the form of specific event. That's why it is stated, "Zakkirhum bi ayyamillah." So hunalika da'a Zakariya Rabbah. When Zakaria alayhi salam saw her karama, saw her being blessed by Almighty Allah without season, without any apparently understandable passage, means, when he saw this in the form of karama, that she is a blessed lady and blessed woman or blessed girl, then what did he see? He said, pray to his Lord, saying, "O my Lord, qala rabbi habli min ladunka dhurriyatan tayyibah." He had no son till that day. He said, "O my Lord, grant me with a son that is pure for you." And he had, Almighty Allah, grant me with a son. He prayed, Hunalika da'a Zakariya Rabbahu. He prayed at that particular place where he did find Allah's blessings in the form of karama of Sayyidah Maryam. Hunalika. He prayed Almighty Allah at that particular place. He would have prayed Almighty Allah in the mosque at any other place. He had been praying everywhere. But what is the point of praying at that particular specified place? Because he saw Karama of Maryam. He saw that she was blessed by Almighty Allah. He saw and found that Almighty Allah was pleased with her, with this pious lady. So he found that place of Karama and Allah's blessing, and he thought to pray Almighty Allah at this particular place. He prayed and asked Almighty Allah for son, and he was given. فَنَادَتْهُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَهُوَ قَائِمٌ يُصَلِّي فِي الْمِحْرَابِ. While he was standing in prayer in the same chamber, the angel came and gave the glad tidings to Yahya, confirming the truth of a world to him, the Yahya alayhi salam. So this is the basis, you can say basic argument or the basic evidence of permissibility of tawassul, intermediation, tawassul wasila. He made Sayyida Maryam and her place, her chamber, as wasila to Almighty Allah. This is tawassul makani. Tawassul, intermediation through a place. Intermediation through, sometimes intermediation through an object, through a thing. As Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam made his qameez, his shirt, an intermediation for return eyesight of Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam. He said, "Izhabu bi qamisi haza, fa'alquhu ala wajhihi, wajhi abi, fartadda basira. Falamma anja al-bashiru, fa'alqahu ala wajhihi, fartadda basira. Izhabu bi qamisi haza, fa'alquhu ala wajhi abi, ya'ti basira. Falamma anja al-bashiru, fa'alqahu ala wajhi, fartadda basira." He gave his qameez, his shirt, to his brothers and asked, "Put my shirt on eyes and face of my father. His eyesight will return, come back." And they took his shirt, put on his eyes, on his face, and his eyesight came back. So here, this was tawassul, intermediation through shirt of Nabi, shirt of a prophet, an act done by a prophet. Wasila, the performer of wasila is a prophet, and the one who is being made wasila is also a prophet. So this became the sunnah, accepting, performing wasila, accepting wasila is sunnah of prophet, and becoming wasila is also the sunnah of prophet. And here, in case of Sayyida Maryam and Zakaria, Zakaria alayhi salam is doing the act of wasila, because he adopted that particular blessed place as tawassul, as wasila. And who is being adopted as wasila? A waliya, a saint, a saliha. She is not a prophet. So Allah's blessings on her made that particular place the blessed place, and that place was made the wasila to Almighty Allah. So Quran mentions the karamat of awliya, the miracles of the saints and the blessed people. Quran mentions Allah's blessings in the form of miracles on his blessed people, whether they are anbiya or they are awliya. So these mentionings and these remembrance and getting admonition and getting advice and getting lesson and getting light from these mentionings and remembrances is in fact the sunnah of Allah. And the way of this remembrance, the way of this mentioning and getting advice from that, their particular way of life and their events, is the way how the Sufiya and the saint has mentioned the tasawwuf. So tasawwuf is in fact the zikr of salihin and the righteous in this sense. And in this sense it is established that tasawwuf, being the zikr of salihin, is sunnah of Almighty Allah, and sunnah of prophets, and sunnah of Quran, and sunnah of holy prophets. In my last lecture I mentioned many hadiths on this subject. Ma alayna illa al-balagh.